It all started with a text. I was sitting at my desk, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop, the cold rush of morning air from the cracked window brushing my face as I sipped my third coffee of the day. The pressure of running a successful business had already begun to weigh me down. My cleaning company, Clean Source Incorporated, was doing well, but there was always more to do, always more to manage. I wasn't complaining. It was just the reality of being a self-made woman, a reality that my family seemed to forget. The text from my mother came unexpectedly, shattering the rhythm of my thoughts. I squinted at the screen, my fingers freezing on the keyboard as I read it. Don't come to Christmas this year. It's for Elliot's sake. My brother, Elliot, the same brother I had supported for the past 5 years, the one who was studying to become a doctor, all while I worked 16-hour days, sacrificed everything, and built a business from the ground up to make sure he could follow his dream. The same brother who was now turning his back on me. I blinked, reading the message again. For Elliot's sake? Was I misreading this? Had there been some mistake? But as if to confirm it, another message came through. It's just Maya's family. You know, they come from a different background. We don't want any awkwardness. A different background. I knew exactly what that meant. Maya, Elliot's girlfriend, came from a family of surgeons, hospital owners, people who probably had buildings with their last names etched in gold. And me? I was just a woman who scrubbed toilets. I was the janitor, not the founder of a multi-million-dollar cleaning business, not the woman who had sacrificed everything to put Elliot through med school. No, to them, I was just the help. I felt a cold wave wash over me as the realization hit harder than I expected. I wasn't just uninvited from Christmas. I was being erased, hidden like some embarrassing stain on their perfect, well-manicured lives. The worst part? Elliot agreed with them. My own brother, the one I had been there for, time and time again, was siding with my mother, pushing me aside as if I didn't matter. I put down my coffee, my fingers still hovering over the keyboard, but instead of the anger I expected, a strange calmness settled over me. They thought they could just discard me like this. Fine. Let's see how well they do without me. I should have seen it coming, looking back. There had been signs, small, seemingly insignificant moments that painted a very different picture of Elliot. The way he started avoiding my calls, the way his gratitude shifted from warm and heartfelt to distant politeness, the way he never once mentioned me on social media, despite constantly posting about his journey to becoming a doctor. But I ignored it. I loved him, I told myself. Love meant blindly supporting him, no matter what. I was wrong. The first real slap in the face came at Thanksgiving. I had worked a grueling 70-hour week and barely made it to dinner on time. I was still wearing my work clothes, black slacks, a crisp white button-up, the kind of attire I wore when meeting with high-end clients. Elliot, on the other hand, was dressed to impress in a tailored blazer, polished shoes, and a Rolex that he shouldn't have been able to afford on a student budget. I barely had time to sit down before one of my aunts, ever the nosy one, turned to Elliot with a beaming smile. Elliot, darling, tell us about your school. I hear you're doing exceptionally well. Oh, it's going great, he said, flashing that charming, confident smile he perfected over the years. It's tough, of course, but I've been managing. I had spent over $250,000 to cover his tuition, everything his scholarships didn't. I had skipped vacations. I had skipped new clothes. I had skipped having any kind of life at all. But not once did he acknowledge that. Not once did he say, "My sister made this possible." The conversation shifted between Elliot's promising future and how lucky he was to have gotten where he was. I waited. Surely, at some point, someone would say, "And Selena, wow, you're amazing for helping him." But they didn't. Neither did he. Instead, my mother turned to me with an awkward smile. "And how's your cleaning business going, honey?" My cleaning business. Like it was some cute little side hustle. Like I wasn't employing 80 people. Like I hadn't built it from the ground up. "It's going well," I said tightly, forcing a smile. "We just landed a contract with 2 hospitals." "Oh," she said, barely registering my words before turning back to Elliot. "You know, sweetheart, once you become a doctor, you should look into working at a hospital with Maya's family. That would be such a great opportunity." And just like that, I was invisible again. I wasn't even a part of the conversation anymore. It was as if I hadn't worked my ass off to make sure Elliot could follow his dreams. It was as if I hadn't sacrificed everything. When Maya finally entered the picture, Elliot started changing fast. I was happy for him at first. Maya was smart, kind, a promising doctor in her own right. But something shifted. Suddenly, Elliot was too busy to meet up, too busy to call, too busy to acknowledge me. The worst came when I ran into them by accident. It was late one evening. I had just wrapped up a meeting downtown and decided to stop by a cafe for some peace and quiet. I stepped out, and there they were, across the street laughing, holding hands, looking every bit the power couple. I was about to call out to him when I saw it. The way his face changed the second he noticed me. 1 second, he was smiling. The next, his eyes went wide with panic. He grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her into the restaurant so fast, you'd think I was holding a knife. I froze. Did he just pretend he didn't see me? It was humiliating. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that maybe he was just in a rush. But I knew something was wrong. And then came the call from my mother, the final confirmation that I was nothing but an inconvenience to them now. After my mother's text, I went numb. My phone buzzed again with another message, but I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I just stared at the screen, frozen. My entire body was shaking with a mixture of shock and anger, but strangely, I didn't feel surprised. I had been blind, letting love for my family blind me to the truth for years. I had been nothing more than a tool for them, the one who picked up the pieces, the one who made sure everything was perfect, even if it meant sacrificing myself. I decided to call Elliot. Maybe there had been some misunderstanding. Maybe he didn't even know what my mother was doing. I dialed his number, my hands trembling as I held the phone to my ear. It rang twice, before going to voicemail. Of course, I thought, frustration rising. Elliot had become so good at avoiding me. He used to call me, constantly, asking for advice, guidance, asking me for everything. Now I was just a distant memory in his polished world. I tried texting him, my fingers moving quickly as I typed. Did you tell Mom to uninvite me from Christmas? Why would you do that? The dots appeared, then disappeared. I waited. Then finally a reply came through. It's complicated, Liv. You wouldn't understand. My breath caught in my throat. I wouldn't understand? The boy I had raised, the boy I had literally supported financially through med school, thought I wouldn't understand? I clenched my fists around the phone. I could have screamed. I should have screamed. I should have demanded answers. But something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to beg him for answers anymore. I wasn't going to plead for the recognition I had long deserved. Instead, I let out a long, shaky breath. I set my phone down. I had a plan. And Elliot? He had no idea what was coming. The night was long. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every moment felt like I was trapped in a loop, replaying everything that had led to this point. How had it come to this? Why had I allowed myself to be invisible for so long? I had been the one sacrificing. Every late night I worked. Every time I pushed aside my own needs to make sure he was okay. I worked nonstop, never taking a vacation, never thinking of myself. And for what? For this? Elliot didn't care about me. He never had. He had taken everything I gave him, built his dream on my back, and when he had climbed high enough, he dropped me, leaving me in the dust. The next morning, I woke up with one thing in mind. It was time to stop carrying Elliot. It was time for him to feel the weight of his own life. He had been living on my sacrifice for years, and now it was his turn to stand on his own. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and began working through my finances. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'd made things too easy for him. He didn't know how hard it was to make sure his tuition was paid, his rent covered, his life free from stress. I had made it look like it was nothing. He thought it would always be that way. Well, not anymore. Step 1, cancel all future tuition payments. Step 2, withdraw as the guarantor on his student loans. Step 3, cut off the monthly allowance I'd been sending him for living expenses. It took less than an hour to do everything. The safety net I had built around Elliot was gone. I could already picture him checking his student portal, his eyes widening as he realized his tuition hadn't been paid. I imagined the first panicked email to the school, the sinking feeling in his stomach as he realized he couldn't afford to stay enrolled. For once, it wasn't going to be my problem. For once, it was Elliot's turn to carry the weight of his own future. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need to scream or argue. I just needed him to face the reality of his own choices. So, I did something quiet. I posted the truth on social media. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just needed to put the facts out there for everyone to see. Proud moment as my company, Clean Source Incorporated, celebrates its 8th anniversary. I started this business with nothing, and today, it provides stable jobs for over 80 employees. Over the years, this business hasn't just supported me, it's supported my family. It's made it possible for my younger brother, Elliot, to pursue medical school without debt. Every late night shift, every extra contract I took on it, was all worth it to see him succeed. Wishing him luck as he continues his studies, I didn't need to call Elliot out by name. I didn't need to point a finger, but I let the world connect the dots. Let them ask themselves why Elliot had never mentioned me. Let them wonder why he always posted about his progress, but never once acknowledged who made it all possible. The reaction was immediate. Comments flooded in. Wait, Olivia paid for Elliot's school? I thought he had scholarships. Why didn't he mention this? Wow, that's amazing of you, Olivia. Your family should be grateful. And then, damn, I guess hard work doesn't just run in the family. It's built on your back. I felt something deep inside me shift like a weight had been lifted. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to make a scene. All I needed was the truth to be undeniable. Within hours, Elliot called me. He left a voicemail, his voice desperate, almost pleading. Olivia, I don't know what's going on, but I just got a notice from school. My tuition hasn't been paid. I thought, can you call me back? I didn't call him back. I didn't respond. By the time the next day rolled around, Elliot's anxiety was escalating. He texted me again and again, wondering what had happened. But this time, I wasn't interested in fixing his problems. I wasn't going to swoop in and save him, like I had done every other time. The truth was out, and for the first time, it wasn't my problem anymore. The next few days were a whirlwind. My phone buzzed constantly, texts from Elliot, voicemails from my mother, endless messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. They were all asking the same thing. What was going on with Elliot's tuition? Why was he panicking? It was almost too much to bear. But I wasn't going to give in. I wasn't going to fix this for him. Not anymore. Elliot's life was crumbling around him, and he didn't even see it coming. I knew that his image, his carefully crafted persona as the golden boy, the ambitious future doctor, was built on lies. And now, the truth was leaking out, piece by piece. I had posted that message on social media to make sure people knew the truth, but I had no idea how deep the cracks in Elliot's world would run. Within hours of my post, the comments started pouring in. People were starting to question him, and for the first time in his life, he had no one to turn to. His shiny, perfect life was coming apart at the seams. The first sign that things were spiraling was when Elliot started posting fake, overly dramatic updates on his Instagram. He tried to paint himself as a hero, a self-made man who had fought tooth and nail to get where he was. His post read like a motivational speech. Success isn't about where you start, it's about where you end up. I faced challenges, but passion and perseverance have gotten me this far. The struggle is real, but it's worth it. I could see right through it. The desperation in his words was clear. He was trying to rewrite his narrative, trying to erase the truth I had shared with the world. But the comments under his post told a different story. Wait, didn't your sister pay for your entire degree? Wow, hard work, huh? Guess that's not what your sister's money paid for. Elliot, man, you should be thanking your sister. Don't act like you did it all by yourself. It was glorious. It was exactly what I wanted. The truth was out there, and no amount of rewriting or manipulation could change that. For once, Elliot wasn't in control. For once, he had no safety net, no one to swoop in and make everything okay. By the end of the week, Elliot had become a laughingstock. His carefully constructed image as the ambitious, hard-working med student was shattered, and people were starting to talk. The fallout from my social media post spread like wildfire. His friends, classmates, even people in the medical community began to question him. People started wondering how he had managed to live such a lavish lifestyle on a student's budget. Elliot, never one to take responsibility for his actions, tried to do damage control. He called Maya's family, hoping they could bail him out, but it backfired spectacularly. Maya's mother, who had once been a janitor herself and worked her way up just like me, heard about how Elliot had erased my contributions from his story. She confronted him, and in no uncertain terms, she told him that he had crossed a line. Maya, disgusted by his actions, dumped him publicly. In one swift motion, Elliot had lost everything: his girlfriend, his reputation, his support system, and the respect of everyone who had ever admired him. It was poetic justice. I had always been invisible in his world, treated like a tool to be used and discarded, but now the tables had turned. He was the one who was invisible. He was the one who was being thrown away. And I watched it all unfold from the sidelines. I didn't feel sorry for him, not one bit. For the first time, I felt free. I wasn't caught up in the mess anymore. I wasn't responsible for cleaning up his messes, for bailing him out. I wasn't the one who had to hold everything together while he played the role of the successful future doctor. I had my own life now, one that didn't revolve around Elliot's needs. But then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse for him, he did something that made me question just how far he would go to preserve his pride. Elliot called our parents, of course. He wasn't calling to apologize for what he had done, or to admit that he had messed up. No. Elliot called them to turn them against me. He tried to manipulate them into believing that I was the one who had wronged him. I got a text from my mother. It was brief, but it cut deep. Olivia, what's wrong with you? Elliot is in trouble, and you just abandon him? I read it twice. It stung, but I didn't let it bother me. I wasn't about to fall for their guilt trips anymore. I wasn't their pawn anymore. And then came Elliot's text. The familiar desperation was back in his voice. Liv, can we talk? I ignored it. Hours later, another text. I know you're upset, but this is my future we're talking about. Please don't let your anger ruin everything I've worked for. The audacity, the nerve. He had spent years ignoring me, using me as a stepping stone for his success, and now he wanted me to fix everything for him? Now he wanted me to clean up his mess? It was laughable. Elliot went on to post more updates, each one trying harder and harder to rewrite his narrative. Hard work and determination will always win in the end. His words dripped with self-righteousness, but the comments kept coming, each one calling him out for what he really was. But what really got to me was when he tried to gaslight me. Liv, you know how hard med school is. I don't have time to work, and if I lose my enrollment, everything will be for nothing. I almost laughed. Now time and money were concerned? Funny, because they weren't concerned when he was spending my money on luxury watches and weekend getaways with Maya. Finally, he tried to threaten me. You're making a huge mistake, Olivia. You're ruining this family. And at that moment, I realized just how much I had given up for this family, how much I had sacrificed. And for what? For people who couldn't even acknowledge my worth? I smiled. No, Elliot. I wasn't ruining the family. I was just finally letting them see what life was like without me. The calls kept coming. Texts. Voicemails. My phone buzzed nonstop, as if the world was trying to pull me back into the chaos that I had just managed to escape. But I wasn't interested. Not anymore. For the first time, I wasn't part of the drama. I wasn't the one left to fix everything. I have learned something important over the past few days. I had learned that no matter how much you give, no matter how much you sacrifice, there are people who will never appreciate it. And Elliot, my own brother, was one of those people. It had taken me years to come to terms with it, but now I saw it clearly. My love for him wasn't enough. My sacrifices weren't enough. He needed me to survive, but when he got what he wanted, he didn't need me anymore. That afternoon, while I sat at my desk sifting through contracts, I saw an unfamiliar number flash across my phone screen. I didn't recognize the area code, but something told me I should pick it up. Hello? I answered, my voice steady but guarded. Olivia, it's Maya. Her voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. I need to talk to you. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the wall. Maya, Elliot's ex-girlfriend, the woman he had tried so desperately to impress. The woman who, after hearing the truth, had dumped him in the most public way possible. She didn't owe me anything, but I was curious why she was calling now. Why? What's going on? I asked, trying to mask the suspicion in my voice. I'm not sure if you've heard yet, but Elliot is scheduled to speak at the hospital gala next week, she said. He's pitching his rags to riches story, the usual tale of the hardworking med student overcoming all odds. She paused, her tone tight. But here's the thing. I know you've been supporting him this whole time, and when I heard he was going to stand on that stage and lie about everything, I felt like you should know. You deserve to hear this before anyone else. I felt my heart skip a beat. Elliot, speaking at a gala? He was about to stand in front of a room full of influential doctors and donors and tell them that his success was self-made? That he had pulled himself up from nothing? The audacity, the lies. I'm not letting him get away with it, Maya continued, her voice growing more frustrated. You should come. You should be there when he's giving his speech. You deserve to be the one to set the record straight. I didn't know whether to be angry or to feel vindicated. He had the nerve to do this, after everything? After treating me like I was invisible? After erasing me from his narrative? It was almost laughable. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Maya was right. This wasn't just about Elliot anymore. It wasn't even about the hospital gala or the speech. This was about taking control of my own story. It was about showing Elliot, my parents, and everyone else just how much I had given up to help him succeed, and how he had never once acknowledged it. I thanked Maya for the heads up, hanging up the phone and immediately setting my own plan into motion. The next few days were a blur of preparation. I called a few key business partners, a few of my old contacts from the hospital contracts, people I knew had connections in the medical community, and I made sure they knew exactly what was going on. By the time the gala rolled around, I had a team of people who knew the truth about Elliot, people who would be there to witness his fall. The night of the gala, I dressed in something simple but elegant, a black dress, minimal jewelry. I didn't need to stand out. Elliot would be the one in the spotlight, and I was going to make sure everyone saw him for who he truly was. I arrived at the venue early, standing just outside the main entrance. The building was lavish, filled with high-end donors and prestigious hospital executives. Inside, people were already mingling, but I wasn't here for small talk or networking. I was here for something much bigger. I walked into the ballroom, scanning the room for any familiar faces. Elliot was on stage, setting up for his speech. The room was full of doctors, board members, potential investors. He was in his element, looking every bit the charming, self-assured future doctor. His tailored suit, the expensive watch on his wrist, the confident smile on his face. It was the same image he had built for years. The golden boy. He didn't see me at first, but as soon as I walked into his line of sight, his smile faltered. His eyes widened just slightly before he quickly looked away. I felt a rush of satisfaction. The truth was about to come crashing down on him. The speech began. Elliot started telling his story, how he had come from humble beginnings, how hard he had worked to get where he was. The usual tired story. The crowd ate it up, nodding, smiling, applauding. But I wasn't buying it. I knew the real story. I knew how many nights I had stayed up, stressed out, making sure his bills were paid. I knew how much I had sacrificed. And I wasn't going to let him get away with pretending he had done it all on his own. As he spoke, I couldn't help but watch the faces of the people in the room. There were a few doctors in the audience who knew the truth, people who had seen the behind-the-scenes work one had done to support Elliot. And as he continued his speech, I saw the reactions: confusion, disbelief, whispers. The truth was starting to sink in. And then, in the middle of his speech, a voice from the crowd cut through the air. Is that before or after your sister paid for everything? The entire room went silent. Elliot froze, his face drained of color as he stammered, trying to recover. But it was too late. The damage was done. The whispers grew louder. People were starting to connect the dots. Elliot's carefully constructed image as the self-made doctor, the hard-working student, was shattered in that moment. His reputation was crumbling. I felt a strange sense of relief. This wasn't my problem anymore. This wasn't my burden to carry. As Elliot floundered on stage, trying to salvage his dignity, I slipped out of the room. I didn't need to watch the aftermath. I already knew what was coming. Elliot had built his life on lies, and tonight, those lies had finally caught up with him. The days that followed the gala felt like a blur of chaos. Elliot's life, once pristine and perfectly curated, had come crashing down in the most public way possible. I had known it was coming, but witnessing it firsthand, seeing him unravel before the very people who had once admired him, was a strange feeling. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't joy. It was relief. For so long, I had been invisible, relegated to the background of his perfect life, my sacrifices, my efforts, all taken for granted. And now the truth was out. It was messy. It was ugly. But at least it was real. I didn't hear from Elliot immediately after the gala. At first, I thought he would try to call me, to apologize, to explain, but he didn't. Not at first. Instead, I got a series of frantic texts from my mother. "Olivia, what have you done? Elliot is in trouble because of you. You embarrassed the family. This is not how we do things." She didn't understand, or maybe she just didn't want to. It wasn't about saving face anymore. It wasn't about keeping the family's image intact. It was about the truth, something my family had never been good at facing. I let her messages sit there for hours before finally responding. "You've made your choice. I'm done cleaning up your mess." I didn't hear from her again that day. Elliot, however, wasn't so quiet. As expected, he called me the next morning. His voicemail came in first. "Liv, please. I don't know what happened, but I need you to fix this. I'm sorry. I messed up. Please, just help me. I need you." The desperation in his voice was unmistakable, but it didn't move me. If anything, it only reinforced how little he understood. He hadn't called me for years, only when he needed something. Only when his perfect world started to crumble. I wasn't going to be his safety net anymore. But Elliot didn't stop there. He called again and again, texting, desperate, trying to make me feel guilty. He even sent a message that, at first, I almost found laughable. "I'm not the one who betrayed you, Liv. You know I didn't mean for things to turn out like this. You're the one who's throwing everything away." This time, the words stung. They didn't make me angry. No, they made me feel something else entirely, something I hadn't felt in years. Pity. Pity for Elliot, who still couldn't see beyond his own needs. After the initial shock wore off, I got the real flood of texts. A single one stood out. "Liv, you don't understand. Without you, I wouldn't be here. I'd be nothing without your support. Please." It was the same thing he always said. He had no problem taking everything I gave him, but the second he was forced to face reality, it became my fault. The comments under his social media posts continued to roll in. Some were more direct, some more sarcastic, but all of them were calling him out. "Isn't it nice when someone else picks up the tab for your success? I guess that's what family's for, huh?" The cracks in his facade were widening, and the more he tried to salvage his image, the worse it got. A week later, his attempt to clean up the mess only made things worse. Elliot posted an over-the-top apology on Instagram, drenched in self-pity and exaggerated remorse. It was a poorly executed attempt at saving face, with none of the accountability he needed. His post was a textbook apology. "I've learned so much. I'm grateful for everything I've been given. I will work hard to prove I am deserving of the opportunities I have." The usual empty promises. The comments, however, told a different story. "Hard work? Yeah, sure. Once your sister picked up the tab. Maybe start by actually thanking your sister for once. It might help." It was clear now. People had seen the truth, and there was no going back. The illusion of Elliot as the self-made, hard-working doctor was completely gone. Then, a call I wasn't expecting came through. Maya. She hadn't been in contact with me since their breakup, but she was calling now. "Olivia," she said, her voice careful but clear. "I don't know if you've heard, but Elliot is in full-blown crisis mode. He's reaching out to everyone, trying to fix this, but he's not getting the response he wants. He's trying to act like it's all just a misunderstanding. But I know you're done with him. I know you've moved on, but I just wanted you to hear this from me. He doesn't get it. He doesn't see what he did. He still doesn't think it was that bad." I sighed, pressing my hand against my forehead. Elliot's world was crumbling, and he was still trying to play the victim, still trying to make it seem like I was the one in the wrong. "Well," I said, my voice cold but steady, "he's going to have to figure it out on his own. I'm not his safety net anymore." Maya was quiet for a moment before speaking again. "I get that. I just wanted you to know. You don't need to fix this. You've done more than enough. I know this might be hard for you, but Elliot's actions are his own. He's not the person he wants everyone to think he is, and you don't owe him anything." I knew she was right. I didn't owe him anything. I had spent years giving him everything I had, and he had treated me like I was nothing. A few more days passed. I kept my distance from Elliot. I didn't respond to his calls. I didn't engage in his drama. I let him stew in his own mess, and as the week went on, the news only got worse for him. Several hospitals he had applied to pulled his residency offers. His dream, everything he had worked toward, started slipping through his fingers, and no amount of posts or apologies could stop it. The reputation he had spent so long building, the carefully crafted persona of the future doctor, was completely destroyed. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt done. I was done sacrificing myself. I was done letting others use me to get what they wanted. Elliot's fall from grace was his own doing, and I wasn't going to fix it for him. A few weeks passed, and the dust finally started to settle. Elliot had hit rock bottom, and for once, it wasn't my problem anymore. He had finally been forced to confront the consequences of his actions, and though it was painful, it was something he needed to experience. I focused on myself. My business was thriving, and for the first time in years, I wasn't constantly worried about someone else's future. I wasn't checking my phone for emergency calls from Elliot. I wasn't rearranging my budget to cover his expenses. And then, one day, I received a text from him. It was short, to the point, Liv. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to say thank you. Not just for what you did before, but for what you're doing now. I needed to learn this lesson. I stared at the screen for a long time. For once, I didn't feel anger or resentment. I just felt indifferent. I didn't reply. It wasn't my problem anymore. Months later, I heard through the family grapevine that Elliot had picked up the pieces. He got a scholarship, worked odd jobs, and started living on his own terms, finally realizing the value of hard work. As for me, I moved on. I booked a real vacation for the first time in years. No work, no stress, just peace. I had built my life, and I wasn't shrinking myself down for anyone ever again. I had won, on my own terms.